See you, Marion. Bye.
Oh, hello, Marion
Hi.
Dayre. How you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on, Jeff. It's so fun to talk to you and always great to see you.
So about what 4 or 5 months ago, we landed in a room together that got interrupted. And before I started on it, I talked to my mom a lot. My mom asked me like, "Who you working with?" And I was like, "Oh, it's being run by this writer, Marion Dayre." And she's like, and she couldn't pull it. And I showed her like the list of credits and everything, and she was like, Better Call Saul. She's like, but and you're gonna go in and I was like, she's like, but you, I mean, you do all right with your little stuff, but you got Better Call Saul. And like that's really so anyway, yeah, my mom got me totally intimidated, like before I ever met you. So that was
Oh,
not
I love your mom. I likewise, everybody that I talked to, and there are a few, we have a couple mutual friends who I didn't know were mutual friends at the time who just were like, you're so lucky to be working with Jeff, and it's all come true.
so, well, it's been a lot. I can't wait to get back. I'm really like
Yeah.
funny thing is like I could walk outside now and scream really loud. You'd probably hear me where you are. You know what I mean? Like we're so close for Zoom. So Marion Dare, your first day walking into a writer's room, right? Your very first time as a writer, at the level where you started. What did you feel? What was it like? How did you work your way in? Like what was that like? What was day one, like first day of school like?
Yeah, I mean, the nerves were crazy high. I actually came in season one of Better Call Saul as the writer's assistant. So I knew I was coming into like a murderer's row of talent. And it was just my hope to be as helpful as possible and try to learn everything that I could from that room. So like, there were nerves that I had about being the writer's assistant and doing that job well. It was the first time I had done that job. But, on the other hand, there wasn't as much pressure on me to show up as a writer in that first season. And it's just such an amazing group of people. We actually met the first few weeks of the show. We actually met at Vince's house because we didn't have an office yet. We were still looking for our office space. So we we met in his dining room and we all sat at the long table, and it just like, it felt like a family immediately. And they were so kind and gracious toward me and including me in the conversations. And I was one of only two people on Better Call Saul who hadn't been a part of Breaking Bad. So I was worried about that too. Like this, people who had been together for almost 10 years prior, would it be okay, or would I feel not a part of? And it wasn't like that at all. Of course I wanted to, because of the caliber of work that they do. I pressured myself to like make sure I was double and triple and quadruple checking the room notes before they went out and trying to do everything as well as I could have. I think I would have done that on any show, but especially there.
Did you ever get caught up in something and just blow taking the notes because you were caught up in it? Like something so fun was happening that you just sort of were like, oh.
Well, sometimes the back and forth gets so propulsive, and there's so much momentum that sometimes it's hard to keep track of some of the different versions and like, how am I going to streamline this at the end of the day? So it wasn't so much that there, I would leave the room and Tom Schnauz, one of the writers who I adore, would like lean over and write like poop in my writer's assistant document to see if I would catch it at the end of the day. And I'm sure a couple of times I didn't. I remember an embarrassing time when I'm sure it was like 10:30, 11 at night, and I had, stayed up to try to put the notes together, and I sent it out, and instead of attaching the room notes, I attached like a file of concert tickets or something. So I have attached the wrong file before, but nothing major.
Oh, so your very first time, do you have any memory of the first time you said something in the room, like the first time you worked it up to like throw something out there?
Oh gosh, I'm sure that I don't remember what the first pitch was, but I'm sure that I ran it past a couple different people before I spoke up in the room. I needed a lot of, encouragement to speak of, because I just didn't feel like, that's on me, the imposter syndrome of it all, but just to feel like I deserved to offer my ideas, and putting a lot of pressure on myself to make sure it sounded good first. So I'm sure that I ran it past like Gordon and Jenny before I said anything in the room. And every time, like especially for that first year, it was scary to say anything, but they were always like so kind.
I just it's funny because I've gotten to know you just as a person, but like I never Googled you or anything until like a couple of hours ago. And it was like I didn't know that you had made that full, almost traditional TV rise from like assistant, room assistant, and then the levels and everything. It was like that's inspirational to people out there, because I think people are always hoping that there's a path like that really could happen. And you're like the third or fourth person I know now who's like followed that path to like real success. Did you do it on purpose? Like,
well, certainly not. I mean, I did it out of, the move. When I came to LA, the best I could do was like, I needed to pay my rent. So I nannied full time for the first year, but I also took an internship for Laura Ziskin because I just really admired the work that she was doing, and started helping with like the Stand Up to Cancer campaign. And she was working on Spider-Man 3 when I was working for her. So, I learned the script coverage, and then little by little, the director of development started to trust me a little bit more. And then when she thought I was ready for an assistant job, she started kind of pass some job opportunities along. I'm sure I applied for 300 assistant jobs before I got a phone call. So yeah, I mean, I was fortunate to get an interview to be an assistant to a showrunner. But then some of the, going to work for an actor producer felt like sort of a sideways kind of move after I had worked for a showrunner for a year and a half. I was like, is this going to help my writing in any way? And it turned into, saying yes has done some magical things in that, like, I never know how something might be helpful or useful. And, working for an actor, I got to see the process all the way through from the other side of the page. Like what happens when an actor first gets their hands on the script? How do they study it? What is their breakdown like? Where are they having trouble? What kind of dialogue really works with people? So it was really great. But yeah, I was an assistant for 6.5 years. And of course, there were certain days where I was like, organizing bookshelves, personal bookshelves in a basement. And I was like, no, why did I go to grad school? Everything seems so far away.
At least you knew the Dewey Decimal System from grad school. Like,
oh my gosh. Yeah. My bookshelves here are so organized.
You also did a classic thing that I've seen a couple of showrunners do, where at the end of a year as an assistant, you co-wrote the finale with the showrunner. Some guy named Vince Gilligan, I think his name was. So your first like script that went by on the actual TV had like you and Vince Gilligan as co-writers.
Surreal. It was just a surreal experience. When they asked me, I kind of like there was a beat, and I was like, "Is this real? Am I hallucinating this?" But yeah, and I'm learning more and more that that's not a typical situation, and I hope more people get the chance to do things like that. And I try to give assistants who have worked really hard and are doing a great job the opportunity. But yes, that's a place that really promotes from within, as you can see from the writing staff. Like a lot of them came up through the assistant ranks.
So when you found out that you were going to co-write the episode, and then you like slipped off alone somewhere, like what would like how was your reaction if I'm going to write an episode with Vince Gilligan? Like just
yeah, I walked out in the hallway and called my mom immediately. And she I don't think she really understood what was going on. I think she was like, "You're writing a paper with your boss? Like, that sounds really interesting." But no, I mean, they were so thrilled with me. Yeah, I can't wait to get started. Yeah, it was just like, all the work. At the time season 2, I was the writer's assistant and script coordinator. So I had started writing little scenes here and there, like for the DVD extras and some of the prop docs and things like that. So and as the script coordinator, you know, I got to see the edits going back and forth between Vince and Peter and the writer as they were working their draft into a place where they could share it with the room and the studio network. So I was fortunate to like be familiar with their process and sort of like, you know, I didn't know if I could make a draft that would be remotely readable for them, but at least I knew the process to try to make it a little smoother.
So when you walked into that room, you had a version of your voice. And I imagine when you walked out, you had a slightly different one. Like, how was the evolution through working on your first job, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, before I came on to Better Call Saul, I had worked in half hours only. So, and I had written a lot of half hour. When I was at UCLA, I focused most of my pilots in the half hour space, and I had been to the Sundance Writers Lab with a half hour. So, not that I ever was funny, but I do feel like my chops for drama writing and structure got a lot more informed by that project specifically. And it's just a master class in like how to break character forward and sort of worry about the plot later. So I do look back at some of those early things that I wrote and see like sort of a forced attempt to make a plot concept work before really understanding the characters.
I've seen this firsthand. Like, I just want to say something largely because I've talked to a ton of pre-WGA writers over the last like 10 or 11 months and gotten to know a lot of them. And a lot of them are really worried about some of the stuff that comes in the future, like going in and facing those jobs and facing your self-doubt and being able to like really pull it out of yourself and everything. And I just have to say, like, this is, you know, just by a little observational time of being with you, I've seen you go through so many of these things, like so many of these feelings and like so many questioning things and seeing all those things as you go through your process. And I think what's really inspirational about it is the stuff you're turning out while you're doing it. I'm standing beside you, sometimes looking at this stuff going, but that's great. Like, that's great. But I think what you have is you took this thing that could take some people down. And to me, you seem to have turned it into a secret weapon where you look inside and you just constantly kick the tires on this stuff to see where you could break it. If there's a way to like, to make it, to prove that it doesn't work, you know? And it's like, I don't know. I felt like a lot of people are worried about that feeling that they have in themselves. I just observationally have seen you turn it into kind of like a writer's superpower. And I just think more people could probably do that in the moment, like use the adrenaline of those things to just become a better editor of your own stuff or look at your own world. So anyways.
Yeah. And there's a balance, you know, between being hypercritical of myself and like sort of using those feelings of like, is this going in the right direction? Am I doing okay? And certainly, like, as I've shared with you off screen, you know, like I've gone through periods in the past where I've been like, you know, really self-abusive when I didn't feel like I believed in myself. And there were a lot of like self-worth questions that almost a couple times took me out. And it was like a lot of processing and a village worth of people supporting me and reaching out to my mentors and like constantly working on how do I not self-destruct in the move toward trying to get this, and how do I not sacrifice my well-being but still keep the integrity of the story together. And the last thing I'll say about that is like, it's never served me well, that idea of fake it till you make it. Like, it's never served me well to try to act like I know what I don't know, or try to act like I believe what I don't believe. It's always best served me to, and I've made a lot of mistakes, you know, like my first time like leading a room, I'm sure I made every mistake in the book, but like to be able to sit down and say like, I don't really know the best way to go about this. What do you think? And if you are quiet and give people some space, they'll tell you which direction we should go. There's a threshold to that. You can't let everybody belabor something for a long time, but you know, it's just being honest about what I don't know and what I'm hoping to learn. And, you know, can you all teach me along the way? It's done wonders for me.
Impossible question time. If you had to pick one mode only and you had to choose between group work presence in a room or sitting alone, at home, like, and it was just one or the other forever. What would you pick?
Group
Yeah.
work, 100%. Of course, they're like, you'll learn that, but like, as you go, I've learned that I sort of need to go back and forth. Like I need to go to the group, and then that's why we have a nice time in between writers' room sessions, so that we all can process, like, how do I feel about this, and what might I be able to offer tomorrow or moving forward. But I I've never brought an idea to a group of writers. I'll say writers because I don't necessarily always feel that way about executives, though some of them are great. But I've never brought an idea to a group of writers and walked away without it being better, stronger, more flavorful, and better for the story, especially with structure. Like, I'm not a great structure writer.
How dare you? I disagree, but go on.
No, I come to you. I'm like, Jeff, where do we move this? What do we do?
I don't accept this testimony. Having seen, I know what you're staring at right now is a whiteboard that's probably got a really cool structure on it right now. So I know that that's what you're facing. So, but yeah, I understand. I think that you can't, if you overrate yourself in your head, you could do yourself a disservice, like and if you underrate yourself, you can kind of cause yourself some internal stomach troubles. So it's like, I try to land somewhere in the middle where it's like, I'll get through this, like it'll be okay. I got a question for you. I don't want to shock you. If you were like forget everything, if you were just getting out of school right now, or you were just starting to like transition from some other job into this industry, like, how do you think you'd go about it? Like knowing what you know now, is there any way that you could think of that you'd go about it? A lot of people out there are always looking for ideas and a fresh take and a fresh path. And one of the things I always tell people is that instead of going after agents and managers with your querying, to go after, baby producers and smaller producers whose names are on things that you know and have gotten made and love. And they're a little more accessible to me than agents and managers. But anyway, just curious if you had any sort of insights, like how you'd approach it.
Yeah, I mean, really similar to what you're saying. I think, I'm glad that I was naive when I moved out here, and I literally just like looked up. I had a list of like 5 people that I really wanted to be around, and one of them was Laura Ziskin, and I just like I called their office. Like, I kept sending emails before I knew that like people don't generally do that, but similarly to what you're saying, like, rather than trying to get an agent or manager off the bat, I would probably get specific about who I wanted to work around writing wise, or producers that I like, or what are some of the shows that I'm really digging, even if they're over, but like, where are those people now? I'll look up if there's a show I loved 5 years ago, that I really liked The Night Of when it came out, and so like, maybe I'll look up and see who the staff writers were on that show and where they are now, and the producers on that show, and do they have their own production companies? Are they working somewhere else? And almost all places will be open to, if not giving you an internship, if you don't qualify for something like that, like a lot of people will meet young creatives for a coffee or to talk and give some direction. And that's the way that you start relationships, so that when they have an opening next, they'll remember your kindness and curiosity and reach out and say like, I have something for you. So I like to, target the people that I most want to work with. And then you broaden that circle out until you get a hold of somebody and you see can I help you? No. Well, can I volunteer to learn from you? And they'll say yes, or at worst they say no, and you could still keep asking other people.
I always tell people to go with the "can I pick your brain about blank" approach.
Yeah.
So inoffensive, but Hollywood people, you get them talking and they'll be your best friend forever because you just sit and listen for an hour, So
yeah. And I mean, the more prep you can do going into that, like if you're meeting with a writer or producer, like read the scripts of things that they've worked on before, see if you can go on IMDb Pro and get their slate of the other projects that they're working on, so that you can really get a full picture of them going in, and not just not just go in there with an attitude of like, what can you do for me, but what can I do for you? And if there's nothing available, like, would you be open to letting me read something that you're excited that you wrote, or anything?
So like, where do you like, what's the future? Like, do you have a plan? Do you have an idea? Are you taking it as it comes? Do you know where you want to be in 5 years? You know what I mean? Like, do you operate that way? I know both kinds of people. So, some are super goal oriented and some are just like, you got to take it as it comes. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a little combination of both. Anytime I get too wrapped up in my own plans, like, I'm disappointed, first of all. And then secondly, I'm very glad I didn't get what I wanted 10 years ago. It was a failure of imagination compared to like some of the lessons I've learned, some of the people that I've met, even the harder things were things that like ultimately have brought me to a place where I think I can, better serve whoever I'm working with. So I think something that I've started to do lately that I wasn't doing a few years ago, I'm teaching, what I don't think that I would teach full time, but I really, really love working with young writers. I'm teaching at a couple of colleges now, but I also work with high schoolers time to time, and mentoring young people in recovery programs. So like, I do like working with younger people and younger artists. And I think if I could, one day if I had the ability to help people set up their projects and sort of shepherd them along, that'd be something that I'm really interested in doing. I used to think I wanted to direct until I saw just like how little sleep and how dehydrated a lot of directors are. I'm like, I don't know. I think I'd reach for some Adderall or something.
is it
But
on shot every week? Is that what
yeah,
you
yeah. Writing, producing, of course, to get an original off the ground. I've worked on a lot of adaptations now. So to do something of my own with myself or somebody close to me, that would be a lot of fun too.
That does, yeah, that sounds exactly right. It's just like, I think when you get into it, what you realize is you want to sustain it and you want to find a middle ground where you can just really enjoy yourself. Like it's like you didn't work this hard to get this far to not go to work every day and enjoy it, So I've had very few like of those experiences. Have you, do you feel lucky? Like have you it feels like you kind of, I mean, I know there's some stuff where there's more like drama than other things, but it feels like in general, you've gone from thing to thing in a really successful pattern. Like, like at least from the outside, it looks like you're just climbing and doing more interesting.
Wow. Well, thanks for saying that, because definitely there have been times both caused by me and not caused by me where, it hasn't been like as great as it could have been. But again, like, I'm grateful for all of those things. And like, look, if you can go to a job and enjoy going to work every day, work with a group of people that you respect, admire, and are learning from, and you can advance the story and hopefully, preserve the integrity of the story and not the politics of the company, and you can end that job and hopefully you get a second season if there is one, but if not, like, you still like to, see each other and have those relationships, because, it can feel a bit like summer camp or something, going job to job, and like you make such good relationships with people, and then the show's over and you sort of like go your separate ways. So it can be hard to like form really cohesive bonds that last a long time. So I work hard at my relationships now, in ways that I didn't used to.
That seems really important. I never knew, coming from features, everything was transient. I just assumed that's like, like that was a features thing. And then when it got switched over to TV, it was like, oh, this would be much more normal. And it was like, it's the same thing. People rotate into your orbit and then go back out to wherever they are. And then they rotate back in the next time you cross paths professionally. But it's very rare that you pluck somebody out and go like, I like you around a lot of the time. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and especially like, hopefully the strike will, will resolve some of this, but like as our jobs get shorter and shorter and shorter, and then, even between a mini room, which maybe now they're calling development rooms, and when the show's picked up, like sometimes you don't get to have the same writers even stay on because either they've moved on to other things or you need to hire different people or whatever happens. But like, just being able to stay with the same people year round is becoming a lot less common.
Yeah, I like, but I just, my fantasy job is, 22 episodes, 6 seasons, low turnover, enjoyable time. Do you have like a fantasy gig in your mind?
I mean,
Like,
let's do that. I just, and when
yes.
you meet the people that you really like and that are bringing like really awesome perspectives to the story, like keep doing stuff together,
Yeah, that's the dream, right? And you know what? I wonder if in the wake of what we're doing right now, this whole strike and everything and all the changes that have gone on, I wonder if it seems like there's more and more of an entrepreneurial spirit where people feel that way. I wonder if somebody will go out and start putting these things together, like, I've had this weird thing lately where it's like, I keep thinking about putting together a pitch with a pilot and a director and a room and like just go like take that pitch out, like here's the room, here's the director, here's the here's the pilot, here's the thing, you buy the whole package or not, you know what I mean? And it's like I'd love to try some crazy like new stuff like that. So last thing,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I mean, you tell me, but so last thing, industry, right? The old industry. If there's a couple of things I think we probably agree on, it's that it's always hard, it's always weird, there's always a reason things don't work out. It's like there's always a reason to say no. I think there's a perception now that it's even harder. I would argue that it's like, there's some things are harder, some things are not, it's like it's balancing out to where it's always pretty much a 99% hard. What do you see like in the next few years? Do you have any thoughts about what's to come, industry wise?
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to predict that
Sure. I mean,
on
just
the side
around,
of the
we'll
way.
hold you to it, I promise.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that there's an ability for people to like make their passion projects at a medium budget and not like, without mentioning specifics that might get me in trouble, like we've got to be able to like preserve the writer as the person who's able to make creative decisions and also be in charge of making decisions for the show that are for the benefit of the show. So we don't end up with like,
I think we
essentially.
all know what you see.
Yeah.
I think we know what you mean. You wanted the
Let the
human.
writers write. Let the writers write. That's what I hope happens. And if that doesn't happen, like maybe this is going to turn into what happened with the music industry, where like we're going to start to, or the indie or the movie business when like indie films started, you have to self-finance. So I wonder if a group of creatives will get together, figure out how to self-finance their show and then sell it independently to one of the a platform that's not one of the big four.
Tubi. I mean, it's like everybody
Tubi,
talks about it now. It's sitting there waiting. They showed a model that, I have a friend who like mentor some people, and this guy that I got to know in Houston just makes like 2 or 3 Tubi movies a year, just back to back to back, and uses the proceeds of the previous one to make the next one, and just keeps getting everybody paid. And they make, I guess they get paid based on views and stuff like that. So yeah, there's models. I love the stuff that we have, and I love the traditional system, and I hope everybody wakes up and maintains the human factor and lets us get back to middle ground, mid-budget stuff where you can experiment and have fun. I just want to say, I bet you're the same as me. Like if I made my list of my top 10 favorite movies, I know 6 or 7 of them are mid-budget, like grown-up movies like that. And I bet you most people are that way.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh, well, listen, I really, really appreciate you doing this. Marsha's been wanting me to have you on forever, because I think that what you probably don't know about yourself out there is that you're like this underground hero figure to writers. There's people out there who are like, look at the trajectory and look at the stuff coming and see how you do, handle yourself. And I just think it's like a very inspirational thing. I love what you're doing. On our thing together, where we're in a little thing together. It's been like such an absolute pleasure to see you working, and I can't wait to go finish it and then figure out what's next. So
yeah. In the meantime, let's get a taco and go to the farmer's market,
yes, please, you know where to
Go
get
hit
us.
the picket lines.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, they're all, well, you can go to Radford and do all of that at once. Like it's all there. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, a one-stop shop. I love that.
pick it late into Friday, stay over Saturday, go into the market. Anyway, cool. Really appreciate you having here. I know you're a mentor out there to young writers and stuff, and you're also out there on Twitter and around to see. So I hope that a lot of people follow you and track you down and keep following what you're doing, because it's a lot of fun. So, all right, my dear, I will see you very soon.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much.